What do you think is the biggest regret people have on their deathbed? Is it studying the wrong major in university? Or is it marrying the wrong person? Or maybe it was going on stage and making a stuttering mess out of themselves? Well, according to a study done by psychologist Thomas Golovich, it was none of these things. In his paper, The Ideal Road Not Taken, he found that 76% of participants said their biggest regret was not living their ideal self. In another book written by Bronnie Ware called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, she went around in palliative care interviewing patients with terminal illnesses on their deathbeds. Knowing that their life was ending with certainty, the weight of every moment began to settle, and most of them had a single regret that hurt them more than anything else. They said, "I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." The more studies you sift through on regret, the more this pattern will begin to manifest in front of your eyes. The tendency to live a life in the eyes of other people, what society has indoctrinated you with, will be your greatest regret by the time you meet death. And yet this social programming is something every single one of us is vulnerable to. Most, if not all of us, have no idea what we truly want to do in life. We have this bottomless hole inside of us that we fill with junk like social media, video games, pornography, drugs, etc. And if we realize these things are ruining us, we don't know who to blame except ourselves. I'm weak. I'm the loser. It's all because of me. So you cover this weakness up by wearing a shallow coat of accomplishments. Build some muscle, get more fit, wear better clothes, become a better speaker. But on the inside, you'll still beat yourself up the same way because you never truly dealt with the bottomless hole. You just replace the distractions with another one. And if we realize this outer shell is ruining us, we don't know who to blame except ourselves. I'm weak. I'm the loser. It's all because of me. Maybe if I make everything around this ugly self beautiful, I'll be happy. So I'll make a lot of money. I'll find the perfect partner. I'll just have the perfect life. But for now, it's just work, 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 nothing else. Most people wake up from this cycle too late. They were caught in the rat race and they have no way out. And even if you made it to the top, you'll look around and say, now what? The bottomless hole inside of you is still there. It is precisely this social programming that you've fallen for that most people regret on their deathbed. And thanks to social media, our generation is prone to this regret like never before, because we're constantly interacting with other people in algorithms built by some of the brightest minds to addict you and then rewire your mind to become the most carnal version of yourself. Make a social media post, get likes, comments. I wonder what they said. I wonder what my friends are doing. What a perfect life they have. Look at him. Look at her. I wish my life was like that. Maybe I should show something to make my life seem cool as well. I posted on social media again. Keep refreshing, keep refreshing, keep refreshing. Who liked it? Who commented? Oh my goodness, look at me. I'm on top of the world.
Half of life is spent trying to please people, and the other half is dealing with anxieties caused by them. Leave this play. You have played enough.
By the end of this video, you'll understand how to rise above this artificial manufacturing of your life by embracing solitude and boredom, both of which are the prerequisites to finding your true path in life. What should your education look like? Your family life, your love life, your financial life? And even more than that, how do I know my answers are truly mine and not programmed into my mind from years of indoctrination by society and technology? It takes a great deal of focus, time, and energy to figure all of this out, but you know it was never meant to be easy. The path to a fulfilling life is one that has always required deep thought and sacrifice. But when you do embrace solitude and boredom, and you do learn about yourself and the world you're living in, and you do create a vision for your own future, this becomes your key to fundamentally ridding yourself of that constant carnal whisper that has you wasting your life. Waking up every morning confused, not having any vision, asking yourself, what should I do today? And in that immediate moment when you're faced with the option of either playing video games or doing a brutal workout, guess what? Your carnal self overpowers your rational self and you fall into old habits once again. Prepare yourself, because if you listen and apply what I'm about to teach you, you'll be terrified at your own potential as a human being. And you'll realize that when God wishes to make a person truly great, He forces them into a period of isolation, coming out the other end having completely destroyed the previous version of themselves that disgusted them long enough. The first step to overcoming this programming is awareness. Awareness that you're living in a media environment that wants to capitalize on your attention. Awareness that right now, in this moment, you're sitting in perhaps the most pivotal moment that you've experienced thus far. Because so far, your detrimental habits have been acted out in a robotic manner, as if you had no choice. How many hundreds of hours have you spent scrolling on your phone this year alone? Now, what do you remember of it? Very little, if anything at all. You had numbed your mind into a zombie-like state to extract dopamine from such an artificial source, and you've done it so often that it has become muscle memory. To the point you even subconsciously reach for your phone every time you have a moment of silence in your life. But this moment right now is so pivotal because I'm here to tell you that you do have control. You have control of where you're looking. You have control of what you're thinking. You have control of what you're focusing on. And if you ever feel like you don't, it's not your fault. You are only one of many victims to the information economy that has been preying on your attention, hoping to addict you until you feel like you don't have any control any longer. And in a world of brainless scrolling, this is a very important thing to realize. Take control and to not give out to anyone else. So take a moment to just digest that. Now that you're aware that you do have control, there's a second thing that you need to be aware of. There's a temptation to use social media as a source of inspiration and motivation in order to become more productive. You may be following your role models on social media. You may have some cool edits saved to hype you up and give you motivation. And so you would like to go back to social media in times where you're lacking that motivation and energy to boost up and become hyper productive. But this is a completely incorrect understanding of our state of productiveness. A greater level of energy is not going to make you more productive. In fact, it can potentially make you more distracted. A calmer mind is what will truly make you productive. I mean, just think about it. Imagine you're sitting in a library and you have to study a textbook, but you're tired and so you feel you can't maintain maximum focus. Well, what if the library was lit on fire? Your energy and alertness will go through the roof. You're pumped up like never before, but will you be able to study the textbook now? No. And it's not because there's a fire and you need to leave the building. Your body is in an adrenaline state where you'll have 100 thoughts running through your mind. You've experienced this too, haven't you? That shallow attempt at using external stimuli in order to push you into a state of focus that is fleeting, leaving you even more tired and distracted after that adrenaline is gone. Your attention span is further conditioned to be erratic and short. Do not rely on social media as a stimulus for productivity. It is only destroying your ability to focus and reducing your attention span even further than it already has. So what should you do when you're tired instead? Dr. Andrew Huberman covers a great deal of literature on the state of focus and productivity. But long story short, instead of opting for more energy and alertness, the optimal thing for you to do is to take a non-sleep deep rest. Take a few minutes to lean against something, close your eyes, take deep breaths, and just let go of any expectations. You will find yourself calming down, perhaps even nearing actual sleep, but you pull back, get up, and return to your study. You will find a restored sense of focus and attention. And if you do this non-sleep deep rest, then you will find a restored sense of focus and attention. And by now, I hope you've become aware attention is the greatest currency in this information economy. It is the one thing that big tech is praying to capitalize on. Your attention is your freedom, so take it seriously. Now that you've become aware of these two things, that despite all the conditioning big tech has put you through in order to addict you to the point that it has become muscle memory for your body to reach for your phone, you truly do have control to change your behavior. You can redirect your attention to something more meaningful. And secondly, that the default state of productivity or flow state is not one of high energy and alertness. Rather, it's a state of calmness and contentment where your attention and memory are at their peak. Welcome now to the next chapter, and what I believe is the most important chapter of them all: deriving purpose from boredom in solitude. There has been a rising sentiment in modern times. Groups rising up to protest against the rule of the game set by capitalism. Some groups, such as the anti-work movement, are sick of the rules and are stepping out of the game entirely. Some groups, and other groups such as FIRE, are accepting the rules of the game but deciding to step out after playing it and earning $1 million or so. Regardless of the decision, one thing is clear. The classical formula we were sold of go to school, eat, study, sleep, then university, eat, study, sleep, then begin work, eat, work, sleep, all the way until retirement or death, has left us with nothing short of pain and suffering, and that there must be more to life. That's why movements such as the ones I've previously named have been rising more and more frequently to combat the modern forces of enslavement. Yet, nobody knows what we're doing here. And so as a result, people begin going on journeys. This is that gap year that you or some of your friends took. This is that period many people take when they retire, wandering aimlessly for a while before deciding to come back to work since they have nothing better to do. The journey of self-discovery isn't just some literary trope in movies and books. This is something that people are actively doing. But why? It's simple, really, to decipher their own thoughts. You see, this modern era of technology we live in has us externalizing our attention at nearly every single moment of time. From the time we wake up and decide to open our social media or open up a podcast to listen to as we prepare breakfast, or when we're commuting to work, we put on some music and numb our minds as well. And when we come back, we pop open a video game, and God forbid we go into the washroom without our phone. That's absolute torture. And we know now from studies that video games and other stimulating technologies suppress the amygdala and limbic system, which are both responsible for your emotional regulation. Whenever you feel bad or overwhelmed, you go watch videos on social media or pornography or video games, but it all numbs the emotional system in futile escapism. Your quality of life is constantly buried under it all, again and again. Our attention is always being directed to something external, whilst our internal signals that have been going off like crazy are always getting numbed down. I mean, this is why shower thoughts are a thing in the first place, because the shower is that one place where we can't take our technology since it'll get wet. So we begin to have these profound realizations about ourselves that we otherwise would never have given the attention to come to. This is where we come to the crux of the issue. Your constant externalization of attention, i.e. your avoidance of boredom and solitude, is the reason you feel like you can't figure anything out in life. But once you realize that boredom is an emotional state that is a mechanism used by your body to prompt you into a desirable action, then you're able to just sit with it instead of instinctively acting out. And when you experience this intense boredom and you don't give into it, you'll realize that the rapid thoughts that were bouncing around in your head are beginning to slow down. Every time you had a problem in life that needed to be dealt with, you suppressed it by externalizing your attention to something else. But for the first time, you put away your phone, your books, your computer, and you just sat with yourself, internalizing your attention until one day there are no more impulses, no more scattered thoughts picking your mind. You achieve what many call end of thought, that magic inbox zero in your mind, where you become hypersensitive to internal drives, internal goals, and internal values. You'll realize that you didn't have to sacrifice the best years of your life to find out that you were aimless, that you were wandering without a purpose all this time. And as Dr. Alok Kanodia and many other psychologists are noting with recent studies, that the variable most correlated with pornography addiction is meaninglessness. Although this study cannot be generalized, I'm sure you understand how all addictions can become much more attractive to an individual when he or she has no greater purpose. Now, figuring out what your purpose is cannot be given justice to in a short video like this. That's what the entirety of Project Ihsaan itself is being built for. But at least understand that tolerating boredom in solitude is the first step towards it. And so here are 5 fruits of enduring boredom in solitude. Tolerating boredom in solitude will for the first time actually allow you to recognize all of those internal signals you've been numbing that were trying to signal to you your quality of life. Secondly, it will reverse all that dopamine conditioning that has left you overstimulated beyond belief, clicking and scrolling mindlessly until your attention span has come to a point of severe impairment. This boredom will begin healing your attention span and improving your memory, which are crucial for decision making and productivity. Thirdly, it will leave you with much more free time to focus and think about the bigger decisions in life, because so many people spend nearly half their life working a job, but they've spent very little time deciding what job they want to go into. They were just told to go there, and by the time they woke up, it was too late to go anywhere else. You need time, attention, and clarity to figure those things out. Fourthly, it will recondition your entire experience of time as you know it. You've spent hundreds of hours scrolling on social media this past year alone. What do you remember of it? All you feel is the guilt that time flies by so fast, you feel like you don't know where it's gone. All because you couldn't endure boredom. Fifthly, and most of all, boredom and solitude will help you take steps towards finding your purpose in life. If all of this does not convince you that you need to start enduring boredom in solitude for at least an hour every single day, then I really have nothing else to tell you. If a single pill could encompass all of the benefits of boredom, it would be the most expensive pill known to mankind, and here it's all yours yours for the keeping if you can actually just give an hour a day? And yet, you turn away. In the words of Fyodor Dostoevsky, you sensed that you should be following a different path, a more ambitious one. You felt that you were destined for other things, but you had no idea how to achieve them. And in your misery, you began to hate everything around you. So begin. And if sitting alone in an empty room for an hour a day is too difficult, which it usually is for most people, my recommendation is to just slot an hour a day to just go for a walk outside where you talk to yourself. Just a real, genuine conversation out loud with yourself about how life is going, about what you want to do, what do you fear, what do you love, who do you want to stay away from. Just let it all out. But eventually you want to transition into an isolated space to attain further clarity. And the biggest realization for you will be that you don't need to fear being alone. Just being with your own thoughts wasn't such a terrifying experience after all. I hope you've been taking notes so far, because now we're headed into the final chapter of the video. I spent a great deal of time in this video trying to convince you of enduring boredom and solitude, but there are some things we need to understand that can ruin our lives instead of improving it. The first thing to note is that boredom can be a double-edged sword. Just as it forces you to internalize your attention to your own quality of life, it can force your attention to things that have been whispering in your ears that you were avoiding for good reasons. I'm talking about addictions. Just as boredom can force deeper contemplation, it can also bring up negative thoughts and emotions. Trauma from your past that you would rather have kept buried in distractions than deal with it head on. And without the proper tools and emotional intelligence, these negative emotions can lead to rumination, a cycle of reinforcing negative thoughts and feelings by replaying them in your mind again and again. So all of that extra time that's now in your hands and the excruciating pain of boredom that you may initially experience just might push you to escape this torture through unhealthy avenues such as alcohol, video games, pornography, etc. If that's the case with you, you'll have to schedule your time for boredom in solitude at particular times in your day where you cannot access those stimulants or addictions. That's really the best piece of advice I can give someone who fears their trauma and addictions resurfacing due to the boredom that they're now facing. The second thing to note is that solitude can lead to loneliness, which is detrimental for our mental health. Loneliness, surprisingly, has little correlation with solitude. In fact, many people who suffer from loneliness are surrounded by people all the time, but they feel left out, either third wheel or neglected from conversation, whilst many people spending their days in solitude are far from loneliness because they're deeply engaged and focused on some project or venture that gives them purpose. And the few social interactions that they do have are meaningful enough to satisfy their social cravings as humans. On a side point, this happens to be another great benefit of solitude. The quality of your interactions, whether family, friends, or co-workers, improve, and you leave with a lot more meaningful connections because of the scarcity of interaction. Too much social interaction can numb you to its weight and importance, and withdrawal from it brings that feeling back as you reflect. I should have done this, I should have said that. My life would be so much more different if only I communicated more seriously. Regardless, this feeling of loneliness can only be combated through finding your purpose. And I don't mean it in the self-help guru way of some abstract philosophy to guide you. I mean literally finding the skills and projects you need to develop in order to become the most impactful and influential version of yourself. If you're good at art, engaging in sketching or animating can alleviate that feeling of loneliness for the time being. And once you figure this purpose out, good company comes naturally. Show it at conventions, locally, and like-minded people happen to be present, viewing your work. And they're thinking, hey, this person is a lot like me. And therein lies your key to connect. Deep, focused work on a craft that serves your purpose will attract company that you will find pleasing. Memorize that and engrave it on stone, because this is the company that you are in absolute need of, because your friends will have a great deal of impact on your life. Solitude isn't a permanent phase. It's a temporary requirement to detach from your old life that you sacrifice to attain the complexity of mind to engage with people at the level you strive for. This is a category of people you're striving for that make the impossible seem possible, shattering every limitation that you had previously put on yourself due to your mediocre environment. And as the saying goes, your network is your net worth. But people with high net worth are quite greedy with their time and energy. So cold emails and stalking them around isn't a good idea. They need to be convinced you are worth the time and energy, that you are not some loser with no ambition, that you actually do bring value, that you're different from the rest. I'm not saying that this inherently becomes your purpose, that you obsess over trying to please people that you look up to. This is a simple reality of life. However, this is only for a select few of you that are willing to go the extra mile. For most of you, I suggest you just join a local running club or martial arts group. They're usually pretty chill people and they're a good influence on you. But yeah, be careful of conflating loneliness with solitude. You do not want to stagnate your growth. Feigning solitude when in actuality you're just driving yourself into delusions and imaginative fantasies to cope with the real questions regarding your life. Solitude is intentional, loneliness is forced. And as Robert Fulghum says, solitude is a solitary boat floating in a sea of possible companions. Finally, since this video is primarily meant for an audience of young Muslims, you need to understand that Allah has prescribed solitude as a core act in the Quran. Hundreds of times Allah asks, do they not think? Do they not ponder? Do they not understand? He even describes a category of people called Ulil Albab in the end of Surah Ali Imran, saying they are those who remember Allah while standing, sitting, lying on their sides, and specifically, they reflect on the creation of the heavens and the earth. And then they pray, our Lord, you have not created all of this without purpose. Glory be to you. Protect us from the torment of the fire. For all these situations, what is pre-required is clarity in thought. Time that is allocated to internalize your attention instead of externalizing it, as most people spend their entire lives doing. Not to mention that the act that the Prophet ﷺ was engaged in that prepared him for revelation was leaving society and retreating on top of a mountain for long periods, even weeks at a time. What was he doing? Thinking of a solution for societal oppression, the problem of the strong oppressing the weak, the disease plaguing human societies. What is the cure? That was his obsession in these retreats. It is that solitude that he endured which allowed him to become sensitive to the weight of revelation, a preparation decreed by Allah. So Khadija radiallahu anha described him as a person who developed the love of solitude just prior to revelation. Now you can understand all of the psychological phenomena as to why, and it makes sense to you. The question now is, what are you going to do with this information? Continue life as usual? Or will you actually begin intentionally spending time away from everything in deep contemplation? I personally recommend hour-long walks whilst talking out loud for absolute beginners that are terrified of sitting alone in a room for an hour. But if you're up for it, spend an hour in a room alone. Don't try to force yourself to focus on your breath or any of these other meditation tactics. Just be aware of your own thoughts. The first couple of minutes will be your most recent informations. Instagram Reels playing, music that you really liked, memes that you laughed at, but don't get disturbed. Just take note. Wow, this has been playing in the back of my head this entire time. No wonder I can't figure anything out in life. And that is a deep conclusion. But the real sweet stuff comes the longer you endure it. Your thoughts now go to major life events, and you ask yourself, why did my mind go there? Why is my mind so unsettled about this experience in particular? Shower thoughts won't even compare to the deep insights and awakenings you'll get from just sitting alone and being aware of your own thoughts. Letting it go wherever it takes you and just taking notes of it. Nothing else. Don't have any expectations. Don't have any desired outcomes. Just you and yourself. You will, for the first time, begin to tame and control your thoughts instead of becoming a product to the tech giants preying on your attention. And as things are going right now, the future is looking quite dire. Can you imagine if all the tech billionaires took our attention permanently? What type of dystopia would that even look like? Let's make sure that doesn't happen, one step at a time. That's what Project Ihsaan is here for, after all.